miss you, Dad.
Rita Wild, so good to see you again. It's been a little while since our last show, but we're all just getting organized here in our lives, and when we're helping other people in their lives, it kind of takes a little extra time, doesn't it?
It does, and sometimes it just is what it is, and we acclimate and adjust as we need to.
And here we are with another beautiful episode of Rock and Roll Confessional.
Oh, I loved this one. I love this interview.
Do tell, Reeds.
That was great. Walter Trout. He's a guitarist, singer, songwriter. He's been playing the blues his entire life. He got tips from B.B. King and Duke Ellington's band. Walter became one of the best blues guitarists today. Of course, like many artists, he's had his ups and downs with drugs, alcohol, and even coming within hours of losing his life. But he has just released his 30th album called Ride. And this album gives you definitely a ride. It's one of my perfect analogies of the last 2.5, 3 years. It just, it's the blues. It takes you in. You feel the blues, but it gives you enough uplift to keep on going. Yeah.
Walter starts off the interview with one of the greatest confessions we've ever had.
It's one, yeah, like you said. I mean, you have to hear it. It's great.
Yeah, that's why we're not giving any hints. And it's actually one of the first times he's told this story in the general public. So it's kind of exciting. Walter also talks about some great stories about the love of his family and some of the fabulous artists and bands that he's played with through his career. If you aren't yet a Walter Trout fan, listen to the interview, check out the new album, and we promise you won't walk away disappointed.
Amen, brother.
So here's our interview with Walter Trout.
Yay!
Okay, it says you're recording this. That's a wonderful thing.
Hi, Walter.
Hi, CW. And hi, Rita.
Nice to meet you, Walter.
Nice to meet you, Rita. And I know that voice very well.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's a real pleasure to talk with you. Thank you for agreeing to be on Rock and Roll Confessional.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here.
And I understand that you do have a confession that you want to start off with.
Well, this is a story that certain members of my family know, certain friends of mine know, and I have never told it in an interview. I ran it by my wife manager, and she said, yeah, that would be good for a rock and roll show. I will go back through history, and I will tell you that when I was learning the guitar in Collingswood, New Jersey, as a young person, 13, 14, I lived in a high-rise apartment with my mother and my stepfather, and my stepfather had been a prisoner of war in World War II, and he'd been tortured and he was tormented, and they didn't know about PTSD back then, right? He was told come from the war, and anyway, he was a very violent, mentally ill alcoholic, and many times I was in fear of my life. That's the preface here. Now, my mother was a teacher on the faculty at my school, and we lived in a very small apartment. So at 9:00 at night, she would say, Walter, I got to go to bed. You're playing the guitar. It's, you got to stop. I would go into the stairwell of the apartment building, and it had amazing acoustics, and I could sit there with my Martin guitar and I could just go till 3 a.m. And sometimes I would go in that stairwell with my girlfriend and we'd make out and stuff. But anyway, one day I went all the way down to the bottom of the stairwell, which was 2 floors down, and under the stairs back in the corner were 2 or 3 half-drank bottles of booze. And I realized that my stepfather was trying to hide his booze down there. And I would see him once in a while going into the stairwell. Now, he was a 6'6" ex-Marine. I was scared to death. But there were some times where I'd be incredibly angry at him. And here's the confession, I began pissing into his whiskey bottle. And this is the only way I can get the guy, right?
Oh, I love it.
Now it even gets better. Some of the bad guys in the ninth grade, there was this street gang in the town, and they were the rough guys and like to kick ass, and they heard through the grapevine that I knew where my stepfather's booze was. And one day they all showed up at my apartment, about 7 or 8 of them, and they came into the living room and started yelling, "Where's the booze? Get the booze!" And this one guy, "I want to get," can I curse?
Yes. Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
"I want to get fucking drunk." I said, come on with me, guys. And I led them down the stairs, and I stood there with my arms folded as they passed around a bottle of Jack Daniels mixed with my stepfather's drool mixed with my urine. And I've never told that story in an interview. And to this day, I would think, here's these badass guys and they're drinking my piss and they have no idea,
Walter, what if they passed the bottle to you? How are you going to get out of it?
No, I said, I'm not interested. I watch my stepfather drink. I don't want to be like that. Although after I got into some blues bands, I learned how to drink very well. But,
oh, yeah.
But it was the real deal. It wasn't drool and piss.
Lucky you, I guess.
I don't know. I went many years of drug addiction and alcoholism and
right.
all that. But back in the ninth grade, I did not want to be like my stepdad,
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That's hysterical. Sad, but hysterical.
So that was, I ran it by my wife. I said, "What do you think of that?" She goes, "Walter, that's rock and roll, man."
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Nobody's ever confessed to doing that on this show. So that you're first. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you for being here, and congratulations for all the positive reviews.
Wow.
And
yes.
all the accolades you've been getting on your new album, Ride. It's just fantastic. So congratulations on that.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much. It's my 30th solo album. And I don't think I've ever gotten reviews like I'm getting on this thing. I don't know if it's because they go, "Wow, this guy's still alive. This is amazing." Heroin addiction, liver transplant, you name it. But
that's rock and roll, man.
Getting amazing reviews, so I'm quite pleased with it.
Personally, I've got to admit that I've been looking for an album that would kind of explain or give me some comfort during these last 2.5 years of whatever this stuff has been doing. And I found it with this album, Ride. I mean, it's total blues, but the great thing about blues is it can get you, down to a certain level, but it always brings you back up. It always revitalizes you. And that's what I love this album, like side A and side B. I really noticed a difference in those. And
well, thank you, Rita. Yeah. Thank you very much. That means a lot.
Now, this material was written during the pandemic, and I think we all went down some rabbit holes. And, I'm sure that influenced this record a lot.
Well, the story behind this record is kind of interesting in that, I had put out a record called Ordinary Madness, which actually came out right before the pandemic. And people thought I wrote that one about the pandemic because there's a lot of songs on there about sort of hidden mental illness and dealing with stuff, but that came out right before the pandemic, and we had started touring. And in March the 13th, I told my band, "We're going home. We can't do the tour. Everything's canceled." And we came over to our house here in Denmark. I'm in Denmark right now, and we have a a home here in a little fishing village of 500 people on the North Sea. So we felt like we can be safe there, you know. And we thought we'd be here for a month or two, and it turned into over a year. And on my birthday, which was a year later in March, I'm walking through the house, and my son Dylan says, "Dad, come on in my room here. Take a look at this." And on his computer, he's got a Zoom call. He's got my whole band. He's got my record producer. He's got my wife who manages my career, and he's got the president of Pro Vogue Records. And there they are. Wow. And the president says, "For your birthday today, I need to tell you, your manager wife has negotiated a brand new record deal. The band is ready to go. Eric, your record producer, has a studio booked." And then my wife walks in and hands me a plane ticket and says, "So you're going to our house in California, and you're going to write a CD, and you're going to go record it with the band." I'm, well, okay. Because she's like, "You're sitting on the couch, you're not playing, you're not making music, and you're going nuts." It's that whole thing of what we all went through when everything stopped, right? And so I flew over to Huntington Beach, which is where our house is, and I sat in there alone for about 2 weeks and wrote this thing, and then rehearsed it with the band. But I found that I was in a very weird mental state. I don't want to call it reflective, but I did a lot of those songs were written with tears coming down my face. You know, there's not a lot of lighthearted fare on that record. Every song really has a story behind it, and a lot of them are me sort of looking back at my life. Here I'm 71. I had a liver transplant 8 years ago. I know every day is a bonus. I don't know how long I got, and I'm like, I did a lot of looking back on there, you know.
Follow You Back Home seems like a song that you wrote for Marie because you've now officially moved to Denmark, right? And that's where she's from?
Well, she is Danish. I met her here, and all my kids, her and all our sons have, our boys have dual citizenship. They're Danish and American. But that song particularly, we went through a thing a few years ago where it was like, our kids are grown, they're ready to go out on their own. We've been together for 30 years. What do we want to do? Do we still want to do this? And I went and lived in a hotel for a couple of months, a hotel down the street. And we did a lot of soul searching, and we went to therapy together. And I must say, we came out of it closer than we've ever been, because we had a lot of things that needed saying. But when I wrote that song, there was one night I was sitting in my house alone in Huntington Beach, and I sat down and I closed my eyes and I put myself back in that hotel where I'm sitting there eating some fast food alone. And I know that a mile away, my wife and my beautiful kids are having a family dinner, and here I am, this idiot sitting in a hotel going, what do I want out of life? When actually what I want out of life is right down the street. It's my family. And so that song is really hard for me to listen to. But I will tell you, 30 albums, it's just my own opinion, but that's my favorite thing I've ever done. And the solo on it too.
Yeah. It seems like a love song to me. I mean, that's how I read into it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel the downness of it at all. It just felt like a love song, and you were just kind of giving back and sharing life.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a love song, but it's basically taking a very hard look at myself and realizing what I want, and I want to go back home.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that it's the first time you've worked with strings also, right?
Yes. And I need to give credit where credit is due. My keyboard player is Teddy Zigzag Andreatis, who was the touring keyboardist with Guns N' Roses and
right.
Alice Cooper, and he was the musical director for Carole King, and he was with Slash for 12 years. And Teddy came to me and he said, "Man, that ballad, we need to put strings on that." And I'm like, "Well, I've never had strings on a record." And he went home and he did a little synthesized thing with the strings and said, "Here, check it out." And it took that song to a different place. So we hired, a real strings to do it. And Teddy did the string arrangement.
That's great. Going through some of the other songs on the album is just a great album. It kicks right off with Ghosts, such a great blues track. And that's, I think one of those reflective, collective consciousness songs too, like I love the line about, you're in the car listening to the radio and you go right back to where you were when you heard that song.
Yeah. It to me, think about it. I mean, for example, I can give you an example. When the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, I was 13, and I, of course, went out and got Meet the Beatles the next day, and I would be blasting it in my living room. And when I hear I Want to Hold Your Hand, I get some great memories of playing, hanging out with my friends and blasting the song. But I also get memories of in that house, that song is blasting and my stepfather is, chasing us around with an axe, this kind of stuff, So the memories, some are good and some are bad, but I do believe, and this from the music you've played on the radio for so many years, that songs that were popular when you were young, when you hear them again, you're immediately back there.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. 100% agree. That's followed by the title track, which is a song I love. It's so great, Ride. And it's a song talking about hearing that train. And I think I don't know if everybody, I grew up in Georgia and Germany, but in Georgia, I remember always hearing that train and thinking, wow, I'd love to take that somewhere out of here, and that's exactly what that song is about. And just a great job with it.
Well, that song actually was a poem originally. And when I went to write the album, I found the start of the poem, and I was thinking about that the house in Laurel Springs, New Jersey, which was right across from the railroad tracks. And that's where some really terror was happening with my stepdad. And I would lay in bed at night, and it was the line between, it went from Philadelphia to Atlantic City, that railroad. So it was freight trains and it was passenger trains, but it was all day and all night. And when we first moved in there and I was really small, it would kind of keep me up at night and piss me off because it would literally shake the house, you could feel the vibration in the bed. But then I got to love it, and I got to anticipate when's the next train coming, But I would lay there in bed and I would think, all I got to do, get up out of bed, put my clothes on, cross the street, hop onto that freight train, and I can get the hell out of here. And the song's very upbeat and kind of happy, but it's really about, again, my youth and me laying there kind of filled with fear and thinking my escape mechanism is across the street. Now, I never did it, but I dreamed about it. And it was a poem I found. I lived next to the railroad. I could hear the trains go rolling by. It shook the house. It shook the bed. It always made my spirit fly. Those were the lines I found, and then I took it from there.
Love it.
Walter, one of the songs that seems like it's kind of keyed into almost everything you've talked about right now is Hey Mama, which, I mean, you keep bringing up your evil stepfather, and Hey Mama kind of falls right into there, which is another beautiful song, but yet very haunting.
Yes, I need to say something here too. My stepfather, I never thought of him as evil. And to this day, I love him, but I knew what he was going through and I understood him. I was still scared to death, but I knew that what he had been through, and I knew he was affected by it. And as I was laying in fear, also my heart would go out to the guy, because he was a great guy when he was not drinking. He was a poet. He could sit and he could recite entire Shakespearean plays. We'd sit at breakfast on Sunday morning, and he'd make a hat and a sword out of the Philadelphia Inquirer, and he'd act out scenes from Hamlet while we were eating breakfast. He was amazing. Then he would drink, and those demons turned up. And he told one story once. He just happened to mention it, that in his Japanese prison camp, they had one day buried him up to his chest in sand, and they had stood around and pissed on his head. And that's the only time he ever talked about it. So I don't want to call him evil. He was tormented and he was sick, but he was a good man underneath, and I still loved him. So anyway, yes, back to Hey Mama. I had to I wrote that again as a poem sitting there in that house by myself. And I ended up having to change some of the lyrics because it actually got a little too much, where I don't know if I want to put this in front of the general public, some of the things I had written, so I changed a few of the lines. Some of the lines where she told me to hang on to my self-respect, even when it's me they vilify. And that was, she was still around when I made my very first album. And, I would get some great reviews, and then I'd get reviews that, that were horrible. And, this guy plays too many notes, this and that. Is he rock? Is he blues? This guy doesn't know, all that kind of bullshit. Right. And I'm like, I call it whatever the fuck you want to call it. So she was the one who tried to help me in the beginning, dealing with some of those crappy critics that I ran into out there. So I put that in there, but that was not the original line in the song. But it's still, to this day, my dear wife says, I know you love your mom, but she could have done a little better protecting you. And that's easy to say, but it's easy to say looking back.
How long was he a prisoner of war?
I don't know, because he would
never
not
talked
talk
about
it.
Yeah. See, so, at that time, people didn't talk. There was really no communication, between husbands and wives and kids, that it didn't really filter down and trickle down. It didn't seem like. And it was I guess, always an excuse. But yeah, it's hard to blame your mom, because knowing what the hell she probably was going through too.
Sure. And she would do things like, she'd send him off to Philly. She got him a little room there where he could go when he wanted to go on a bender. And she'd say, look, when you want to go on the bender, go over there, And then one time when he was on a bender, we packed up and moved. We just completely moved. And she said, okay, he's gone. It's just me and you now in this little apartment. And I was like, wow, great. And then he found us and apologized and threw himself on her mercy, of course, and he was back. And that pattern repeated quite a few times, And but I really, it's hard to say anything that I really still loved the man, because I knew what he was underneath, and I knew his torment. Now I was scared to death of him. And many times I was in fear for my life. So when I was in it, it was rough. But after I got out and really took a good look at my situation, I that's why I can't say that she should have done something different. It's a long time ago. And it's, as I say, we're victims of circumstance in the song.
You grew up in New Jersey. I got to ask two New Jersey questions. Late 60s. you're playing
Yeah.
around. Did you ever play with Bruce Stillmill?
I knew you were going to ask that.
Yes, Bruce. Of course.
Yes,
Sorry.
I did.
There'll be a football question next.
No, baseball.
Okay. Yes, I did. I was in a very successful club band in the late 60s, very early 70s. My high school graduation was 1969, and I was immediately out playing. And it was a horn band, and we were doing Blood, Sweat, and Tears in Chicago, and we were doing Stax Bolt and Motown, and we'd take something like Brown Sugar, and we turned it into a horn song, and we worked all the time, and we did the Jersey Seashore circuit was amazing. And the town I grew up in was Ocean City, which is an island just south of Atlantic City, not that far, about 45 minutes from Asbury Park. And so I was doing that whole circuit, and there were a lot of clubs back then that would have 2 stages on either side of the room, and there'd be 2 bands. You play 45 minutes. As soon as you stop, the other band starts. And quite a few of those clubs we did with the other band was Steel Mill.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Wow. Yeah.
And,
That's very cool.
I did meet him back then, and I was rip roaring drunk and stoned, and it's all a blur. Now, when I moved to LA, I did August of 1975 at a club called Guitarists
Yeah.
on the
Sunset Strip.
They had 2 stages, and the band on the other stage was Van Halen.
Oh my God. That's great.
And Eddie Van Halen and I, we used to sit together, and we used to talk about guitar, and we used to talk about our love for the Cream and for Eric Clapton's playing, and how much, to us, the Bible was the solo on Crossroads. And then I used to tell him, it's true, you got to get rid of that lead singer, man. You guys are great, but you got to get a different frontman. And I guess they showed me,
Yeah. Well, they did eventually.
Yeah.
Couple of
They
them.
listened to you, but it just took a while.
Now, my other Jersey question is Trout, and I need to know if you're related at all to the Millville Meteor, Mike Trout.
Well, let me tell you this. When my parents divorced, when I was 8 years old, and my mother took me, and she remarried, and we moved away from Ocean City, and we moved up towards Philly, and she got a job in the high school. I don't know much about the Trouts, but I can tell you this. I'm from the same exact place.
Wow.
And my father had 5 brothers and sisters. And when I was a little boy, we would have Trout family reunions at a place called Lake Lenape out in the Pine Barrens. And there'd be a couple hundred Trouts there. So I am sure
Good fishing.
he and I are distant cousins somewhere
down the line. Yeah.
And
Amazing.
I have a son who's a child now. Biscuit is now non-binary, but before Biscuit was known as Biscuit, their name was Mike. They were Mike Trout, and they went to Angel Stadium and had their student card and said, "Hey, Mike Trout, I'm Mike Trout." And he held up his card, and he came over, and the 2 of them took pictures together.
Oh, wow.
It was
Oh,
great.
great. Oh, that's awesome.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Walter, can you tell us the story of you meeting B.B. King? Because it's, I think, a real turning point in your life.
That was an amazing evening. I was working at a place called the Echelon Mall in Lindenwold, New Jersey, and I was a stock boy at a store called Lit Brothers, and it was an after-school gig and a weekend gig. And I was in there stocking shelves, and one of my friends or somebody came in and said, B.B. King is at Franklin Music. It was a record store in the mall, Franklin Music. I put down what I was doing, and I ran over to Franklin Music, and I got a piece of paper and a pen, And I said, BB was there with a friend of his, and they were looking at records. And I said, excuse me, Mr. King, I'm trying to learn guitar and I want to play the blues. And I'm such a fan. And my dad, my real dad, has had your records when I was a little boy. I've been hearing you since I was just a child, you know. And he wrote to Walt, keep playing. And then he said, come here, let's talk. And we went and we sat on a bench and we talked for over an hour. And he was the most gracious, warm. It changed my life. Now, I don't know if you're aware, when I was 10, I got to spend the afternoon with Duke Ellington.
Oh, my God.
Oh, geez.
And that was life-changing also. That was amazing. You know, it's vivid.
What'd you do for an afternoon?
My mom said to me, Duke Ellington and Tony Bennett are playing at this theater down the street. Do you want to go tonight and see the gig? And I'm like, yeah, of course I do. I was going to be a jazz trumpet player, right? And I was a pretty good trumpet player. And she said, let's go. We walked down to the theater and to go to buy our tickets. And as we were at the box office buying the tickets, all these cars drove up. And these very well-dressed older black gentlemen got out of the cars with their horn cases and walked in this back door. And my mom said, wow, that's them. She goes, come with me, Walter. And she went and she knocked on the door and she said, my son is an aspiring trumpet player. Would Mr. Ellington give him an autograph? At that moment, a gentleman walked out of the place and stood on the back porch there smoking a cigarette. And I told my mom, that's Paul Gonsalves. And I went up to him and I said, Mr. Gonsalves, I love the solo you play on diminuendo and crescendo and blue. And he looked, and here's this 10-year-old little kid talking about, and he's like, really? And I say, oh, it's so great. And you do 27 choruses and it's just incredible. And he just said, hey, come with me. And he took us in, and they were all in there. And he said, this little kid knows all our music. And I walked right over to Johnny Hodges and I said, I love the way you play Mood Indigo.
Wow.
And then I said to Cat Anderson, how do you play those high notes? And he got out his trumpet. He gave me a trumpet lesson. And then Duke Ellington said, come here and sit down. And I sat on this white couch with him and we talked and we hung out. My mother was over in the corner kind of drooling on Tony Bennett, you know, but I didn't really care about him. I wanted to be with the players, you know.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That's so fascinating. So fascinating.
Back when you could do that, you know, back when you could show up at a back door and somebody might like say hi and you don't have a huge bouncer that's like, doesn't give a shit and sends you on your way, you know?
Well, when I told Paul Gonsalves that I loved his solo on that song, I still remember the look on his face. He was kind of dumbfounded, like, wow.
Yeah.
Here's this little kid, you know?
Yeah, it's like, where are you hearing this stuff? I mean, it wasn't, you know, popular, you know, the hip thing for kids to listen to at that time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it took a very, very distinguished palate to understand that. And let's talk about, you've had so many different things happen in your life. One was the liver transplant, and I forget if it was at the liver transplant where you kind of lost the ability to walk and talk and play guitar, and you had to
all of it.
Relearn everything.
Well, I had symptoms for a while. I was getting severe equilibrium problems just walking and standing, and especially on stage. And I was starting to get where my hands would cramp up, like when you get a Charlie horse. My hand would do that, and it would get what I called the claw. My fingers would just close and I couldn't play, and it was terrifying. And they told me I had hepatitis C, which was a liver disease. And my wife and I thought, well, we'll try it. I'll just eat organic food and I'll, you know, but it didn't work. And they said, you're going to have to get a transplant. And they ended up putting me in the hospital. I started in a hospital in Orange County. Then I ended up in UCLA. And I was in UCLA for 2 or 3 months. And they told my wife, we can't help him. He's going to die. There's nothing we can do. And a friend of mine who was a magnificent blues singer named Curtis Salgado had a liver transplant in Omaha, Nebraska. And he called my wife and said, here's the number of this miracle worker doctor. Give him a call. She called him. He said, bring him out here. And my wife and somebody else, they carried me onto an airplane. We went to Omaha, and I was in that bed there for 8 months. And they eventually got the liver for me. But in that 8 months, I developed brain damage where I lost the ability to speak, and I lost the ability to recognize my children or my wife. I lost 120 pounds. I didn't have a bite of solid food for 6 months. I had a hose in my nose. And at the last minute, they found a perfect match, and they gave me the liver. But then the work started because I hadn't used my legs in 8 months. So I started in a wheelchair, and I got physical therapy every day for 3 hours. Then I'd get speech therapy to relearn how to talk. And you can tell once in a while I still get tongue-tied, But I came home, and one of my kids came walking out and handed me a Stratocaster. And I realized that it had been wiped clean from my memory.
Wow.
How to play due to the brain damage. It was like amnesia of music. And I looked at it, I said, I have no idea what to do with this thing. And my wife would show me videos of myself, and I'd go, I don't know who that is. I can't do that. I cannot do that. And she just, God bless her, because she said, you've got to start over. You taught yourself when you were 10 or 11 years old, you taught yourself to play the guitar, and you got pretty good at it. You better start over again. And I started with chords, and I went online and looked how do you make a G chord? How do you make a bar chord? And I worked on it every day for 6 or 7 hours for a year, and it came back. And it even gets better now, because then my wife and kids kind of got together with me and said, look, we're so glad you're alive and your music is back, but we have to tell you, you're a pain in the ass. You've been through all this trauma. You've either got, and this was Marie again, my sweet, dear girl. She says, you either need to go talk to a therapist, or why don't you try writing a song about what you went through? See if you can write a song now. And she gave me that idea. And within about 2 days, 2.5 days, I wrote 18 songs about what I had been through.
Wow.
And they were written it saved me the price of talking to a shrink. They were written completely just to get stuff out that I'd been through. And then we decided, well, we'll make it a record, and it became an album called Battle Scars, which ended up winning the Blues Music Award that year for Album of the Year. And also I won Song of the Year for, the album starts with a song called Almost Gone, which means I'm just about dead. And it takes you through the whole thing. It takes you through blood tests and IVs, and I mean, it's really graphic and quite morbid at times. It's not a happy record, but it ends with a song called I'm Gonna Live Again. And that song, when I wrote that, it was me really asking the higher power, whatever you believe, but the greater power, me asking, why have I been kept here? Why am I still here? There were people dying all around me in that liver ward every day. And there were times they would tell Marie, he's not going to make it through the night. And I would make it, and I am as grateful as I can be to be here and to make music and to have a family. And I'm the luckiest guy on the face of the earth.
And you have a wonderful wife, Marie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Man.
And she co-wrote one of the songs, High as Low, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
She and I have written many tunes together. And that one she wrote, it's about fake news. It's about,
I don't know about that.
Nothing's fake.
It's, we're living in a time when low is high and high is low. And she handed me those lyrics. She said, can you do something with this? We're living in a time when forgiveness hurts our pride. Mm. I was like, baby, you just nailed some stuff here,
I know that you have a lot of, like great success in Europe. And
yeah,
it's so bizarre because the blues kind of started here in America, but it was the English bands. It was like the Stones and the Yardbirds, Animals, doing that music, reinventing it and sending it back to America to teach us what it was. We didn't know. And I love the fact that it's kind of reciprocated with you, is that you've gone over there and these crowds, I've seen photos and videos of them. My God, they go crazy for you.
Well,
it's awesome.
There is a long sort of history of guys that had to go over to Europe to be recognized. Yeah. Maybe the biggest would be Jimi Hendrix, right? He's playing in a little cafe in New York City, and then he goes to England. The rest is history. I know a lot of jazz musicians. Charlie Parker would play in a little club in New York City, and then he would go to Norway or Sweden and play in symphony orchestra halls. It's kind of a long tradition of that stuff. But the way it happened for me, I was with John Mayall. I was the lead guitarist in the John Mayall's Blues Breakers.
And you got to be pretty good to be in that band.
And one night we were in Denmark and John got sick and he said, I can't do the gig. I don't know what to do. And the promoter said, well, John, if you cancel the gig, I'm going to lose a lot of money. So he says, John, how about if Walter and the other guitarist was Coco Montoya, a great guitarist.
Oh, yeah.
So the guy says, what if Walter and Coco go out and front the band? And at the end of the night, I say to people, now, if you want your money back, I'll give you your money back. He goes, but I won't lose so much. So we went on without John. And I did all kinds of stuff I never got to do. I was doing Cream and Jimi Hendrix and I was doing all this stuff, and we walked off the stage and this guy came up and goes, I'm from Elektra Records, Denmark. I'd like to offer you a recording deal. And the promoter, John's booking agent, actually says, hey, Walter, if you make a record, I'll book a tour for you. It was just placed in my lap, So I had to go back to the hotel. John Mayall, hey, Walter, how'd it go? I said, went great, and I have to quit the band,
Thanks.
I mean, such a legacy with that band. I mean, Clapton was in that band.
Peter Green.
Peter Green from Fleetwood
Mac.
Yeah. Oh my God. Just some great guitarists, and that speaks volumes about you and about your playing and your ability. And I'm so happy now that you've got this new album, which will be out. I think it's the 19th officially.
Yes.
And
August 19th for those of you listening in September.
Okay. Yeah. So if you're listening in September, the album is out now. Where can people get this record at? Because it's a great record. I mean, we didn't even talk about some of the other songs I love. The Fertile Soil, Waiting for the Dawn. My God, Destiny. I worry too much. I love that. I mean, just the whole album.
Every one of those has a story. I will get to how to get the record, but I'd like to tell you a couple stories. People who've heard Fertile Soil, they've said to me, well, man, all these other records are like about your life, and it sounds like you're singing about some farmland or something. I go, no. The first band I was ever in my life when I was 14 or something was called The Fertile Soil.
Wow.
And my two best friends were the drummer and the bass player, Larry and Richard, and they're both dead. And the song is really about them. They're just a dusty memory. And that's, there's one remaining band member still alive from that band. And that song is, again, about my youth. It's not about cornfields or something, Destiny is just just the story of when I met my wife, the night I met her. She was in the crowd. We were vibing. I was looking at her. She was looking at me. I said, I got to speak to you. I couldn't stop looking at her. I fell over the microphone and we went out and walked around this old Danish village that's 1,000 years old. And after 45 minutes, I said, you're going to move to America. We're going to get married. We're going to have children and we're going to get old together. And she said, oh, you are crazy. And I said, and you have no say in this because this is meant to be. This is our destiny. And here we are 32 years later, So that's all that song is. I decided with that song to be a journalist and just tell the story. Leave It All Behind. That was written after my wife and I had a talk one day about sort of the music business and the time on stage, how magnificent it is, but a lot of the stuff around it is so stressful. We said, wouldn't it be great? How about we just get in our car, we split, we disappear, nobody can find us ever again. And we both laughed because we're not going to do that. But that's what I wrote into that song.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. Walter, it's time for the bonus round.
Okay.
This is where you can score all the points and take the lead.
Uh-oh.
Want to know if there's a musician that you've wanted to work with that you've never had the opportunity to?
I'll tell you what, man. And I've said this one in interviews. If I could get up and play a song with the Rolling Stones, you could kill me after that. I'm their biggest fan, always have been. And, Paul McCartney right there too. But the Stones playing with Keith, playing guitar with Keith I couldn't imagine it, really.
And you missed going to see them when you were quite young, didn't you?
Oh, you did your homework, didn't you? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was their first tour. I'd never heard of them. The kid that lived upstairs, hey, I'm going to Atlantic City to see some band. I go, nah, man, I'm going to the beach. I'm going to go swimming. He comes home and go, how was it? He goes, man, it was incredible. These guys were called the Rolling Stones. You should have heard them. I'm like, oh, shit. He goes, but we can go next week. There's a band there called Herman's Hermits. That was my first gig. Could have seen the Stones. I went and saw Herman's
Hermits. Well, that's quite a dichotomy there. Even so, I enjoyed both their music, but obviously the Stones.
To miss the Stones on their very first tour was not a good move.
Who are some of the old blues players that you look up to?
The first blues player I saw live, who, I was into it. I was trying to play blues. I was working on it. But the first one I actually went and saw live was Buddy Guy.
Oh, my God.
And he played for about 3 hours. And this was like in 1967 or something like that. And it just completely floored me. And I sat there and I watched what it is. That's what I want to be right there. Now, in country blues, I have to say, I know, Robert Johnson's considered the god of country blues, but I'm not taking away from how incredible he is, but I have a thing for Blind Willie Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
He has a depth of spirituality in his playing and his singing. I don't even mean the lyrics, just it's monumental. It is almost too heavy to take. Sometimes when I listen to him, I've got to turn it off and try to gather myself back together.
Love it.
If you were making a documentary film, what would the subject be?
A documentary film. Wow, I've
You
never
could just
been.
do one on your life, man.
That's what I was
pretty
thinking.
interesting.
You know,
Wow.
they could do one. There actually is a documentary on my life, and there is actually a biography of my life.
Oh, tell us
But
about
they
that.
both came out before my liver transplant, and they both end with me weighing 100 pounds, and I'm being interviewed in a documentary. I can't talk, I'm like this, and I'm
Ugh.
like, and they both end with, we don't know if the guy's going to live or not,
Mm.
you know. But yeah, you could. I might do one on blues fans. My wife has written an amazing book. Her PhD thesis, she did all sorts of interviews with fans of this music. What is it you get out of it? Where did you come from? Most of them are classic rock fans also.
Yeah.
Classic rock and the blues seem to be joined.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And she wrote her thesis for her PhD, and she turned it into a book. It's an amazing piece of work. She worked on it for 5 years.
Wow.
And we'll put a link on our website because I know it's on there. It's on her website. You can purchase it through her website.
Yeah. Yes.
What do you
Cool.
think you'd be doing if you weren't in a band?
From the time I was a little kid, I wanted to be some sort of performance where I'm trying to bring joy and some happiness to people. So there was a little phase when I was a little kid that I thought I would go on Broadway and be in musicals. And then I thought I would maybe try to be an actor, but the guitar just would not leave me alone. Anytime I kind of veered away from that, it slapped me around and said, Walter, I'm your guitar and I'm here for you. And don't you dare think about anything else, but I always wanted to. I was talking to Marie again today and telling her this story. And now it's part of it is not politically correct in a certain sense. There were two movies that influenced me as a little boy and changed my life. When I was about 4 years old, I was watching TV with my mother, and a movie came on called The Jolson Story. And it was about Al Jolson. It starred Larry Parks, who later went down because of the McCarthy hearings. But I was a little boy and I watched it, and whatever with the blackface, this is not what I'm talking about. It was the way he was portrayed as bringing this joy to the audience, and how the people in the movie, when he would sing, how they hung on every word and they smiled and laughed. And then when he was singing, he was beaming, he was smiling, he was having this great time. And I thought, wow, at that moment, I saw the magic of performance. And I saw the magic of the connection and the communication between a performer and an audience. And I thought, wow, I would love to do that. 2 weeks later, I saw a movie called The Jim Thorpe Story. Jim Thorpe was the greatest athlete of the 20th century and all this.
Native American.
The movie, he's a little kid. He's on the Indian reservation, and he starts running, and he feels this incredible joy at running. And it shows him as a boy, he's just running around and he has a smile on his face, and it's so great. And he just loves it and feels alive. So I thought, I'm going to try that. And I went out and I ran a couple blocks and said to myself, I fucking hate this. And so I stuck with the performance,
That's so great.
And
That's
that was within 2 weeks of each other, both of those movies.
Wow. That helped to define. Your favorite axe has got to be what? Fender?
My favorite what?
Your favorite guitar.
Oh, my favorite guitar is a Fender Stratocaster. Yeah. It's got to be. It's the perfect musical instrument. And I've kind of said this before. I started off, Mike Bloomfield had a a Les Paul on the cover of Super Session. So I had to get a Les Paul, and that was my first really good guitar. But I wanted to change pickups. The pickup selector's up here. Then I wanted to turn it down. There's a volume button for this pickup. There's a volume button for that pickup. So I'm going like this all night. And in order to change the controls, I had to stop playing. And in 1970, I was at a jam session in Philadelphia, and a fellow named Bill Brown came over and handed me his Strat. And I felt like I had met my lifelong partner. And part of it is not just the way it fits against your body. It feels like a woman. It's sculptured and it fits beautifully. And it's just so nice. But you control the whole thing with your pinky. It's all right there. You don't have to quit playing. And you can switch pickups and you can change the tone buttons and turn it up and down while you're in the middle of playing. And it's just the perfect instrument. I do have a signature model guitar, which is made by luthier Michael Delaney in Texas. It's Delaney Guitars, and it's a Walter Trout signature model. But he has based the whole thing on my old Stratocaster, the one that I don't use anymore.
Was that the 73 one?
That's the one. And when we're done here, I'll send you pictures of what it looked like new and what it looks like now. And that's what 40 years of touring did. Imagine what it did to my brain.
Wow.
Walter, what's your, do you have a cool piece of music memorabilia?
A cool piece of, yes, I do. I made an album. I was a protege and a dear friend of the late, great bluesman Luther Allison. And I loved him dearly. And after he passed on, I kept waiting for somebody to do something for him. And I felt like he was being forgotten. So I did an album called Luther's Blues. It's the only real cover album I've ever done. I did a whole album of Luther's songs. I had Luther's son, Bernard, play with me on there. And I had Luther's widow and his son and one of his band members write something in the notes on the album about their memories of Luther. It was a real tribute to him. Mm-hmm. And after that came out, his bandmate of 25 years, James Solberg, showed up and gave me Luther's guitar strap from his final gig.
Wow.
And also the shoes he wore on his final gig. And I have them in a very safe spot in my house in California.
What's that
the
address?
I mean, we're in Long Beach. We can be there in 5 minutes.
Well, we want to be to one of those infamous, guitar sessions that you have at your house. I know you've got some dates upcoming in the U.S. and then more European dates. But I noticed December you're going to be at the Coach House.
Coach House, for 2 nights.
Yeah, and also at
Canyon Club.
The Canyon Club, yeah. So got to see you live, man. I just have such connection with you. I such respect for you and your work and the fact that you're still alive and still kicking and still doing it. I mean,
I know. I look in the mirror and I go, "What the fuck, man? How is this possible?"
Hallelujah.
I mean, I was a banging junkie for a couple of years before I discovered cocaine and alcohol. Like, hey, it's 1977 and I'm off the heroin. So I think I'll do 10 more years of cocaine and whiskey. Maybe
it's not as bad for you, right?
But let me see. There's the Canyon Club. There's the Belly Up in San Diego. Then there's 2 nights at the Coach House. And Rita Wild, I would like to invite you, if you would do us the honor at any show you can get to of introducing the band.
I'd love to do that. And CW, I'd love that. We kind of do our own little shtick on, just minor shtick on stage. But we'd love.
Please, both of you then.
Yeah.
Come to a show,
Thank you.
any show you want, and bring us on, and that would just be an honor for me.
Well, just be an honor to see you live. I mean, I just can't wait for that experience. I've missed it in the past, and I'm not going to miss it anymore. And I urge everybody to go out and check out this album, Ride, from Walter
Purchase
Trout.
it, by the way.
Yeah, purchase it. Just don't stream it.
That's right. I was supposed to tell you where you can get it. You can get it on my website, which is waltertrout.com, one word. And we might have a few more. I have some signed copies on there. As a matter of fact, today here in Denmark, I was sitting here signing vinyls for about 5 hours.
Wow.
But, or you can get it, wherever fine music is sold.
Your local retailer.
Yeah, your favorite.
You can go to Jeff Bezos' place, or you can go to Tim Cook's place, or any of those. You can go to Amazon or Apple or any of those places. It's too bad. I wish I could say you could go to Tower Records or Virgin Megastore or something like that, but that doesn't work anymore.
There's a lot of really good independent record stores and vinyl stores these days that still exist. In fact, there's one in Long Beach called Fingerprints that they do. Like, I don't know if you've ever done anything there or not, but they have artists.
My son, Biscuit, my child, who's now non-binary, Biscuit worked at Fingerprints for 2 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Probably ran into him many times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's just so great, and can't wait for that. And continued best of luck, continued great health.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
Thank you so much for just doing what you do and expressing it beautifully and being such a fantastic guest on this podcast.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you so much, Walter.
I'm so honored that you asked me. And, sometime if you want to do one and hear some stories about John Lee Hooker, Big Mama Thornton, Percy Mayfield, John
maybe we can do like
Mayall.
side two.
I played a lot with Mick Taylor.
Yeah.
I knew
Yeah.
Cannon really well. I've got some pretty interesting stories about a lot of those folks.
We would love to follow up with a part two. That would be awesome.
Anytime. I've had a great time, and
Excellent.
I hope I was not too verbose.
No.
You've been one of the best, most fantastic guests we've ever had.
Absolutely. Yeah. We haven't had any other guests. You're actually our first one. But
Well, that's good. You're off the. I don't have to go back to that. That was good. That was good, man. You're good.
You're the best one, Walter. Let me tell you. You're the only one, but you're the best.
I'm the only one, but I'm definitely a legend in my own drug-addled mind here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. It's really been a pleasure.
And thank you really for the kind words you have said about this record, because I know that you both know music. You both know music, and I say that in capital letters. So to get that kind of kind words from both of you really means the world to me. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Continued good vibes and good living, and best to Marie and the band, and have fun in Denmark and on the European tour. And we'll see you in December here in SoCal.
Thank you.
What a great storyteller. He's got more stories, and we couldn't put it all in. So we said, well, hold off. We'll wait a couple of months and catch up with him again before he comes to Southern California and plays. Yeah. And definitely do a part two, because he deserves it. Believe it or not, like right now when we're recording this, getting ready for it, it's the anniversary of Woodstock, and he was actually at Woodstock as a listener. So I got to hear about, his stories about going to Woodstock next time. So.
He, after I stopped recording on one of the units that I record on, he starts going into all these other stories. And I go, Walter, can we use these? He's like, let's save them for next time. I'm like, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
So look forward to round two with him and talking about his career and everything that he's been through, because he's got some of the stories he already talked about with us that we couldn't put on this show were really fascinating and fun and really funny, actually.
Yeah. In retrospect, looking back, it's a whole lot of laughter. And also thank you to Marie Trout.
And John Bleitcher for coordinating the interview.
And if you'd like to follow Walter, the best place is Instagram at Walter_Trout. To order an autographed CD or vinyl version of the new album Ride, go to waltertrout.com or check your local record store to get a regular copy. I was just on his website earlier today, and he's got a lot of great little things, guitar picks and some other stuff that I picked out and bought.
Of course you did.
Of course, you know.
Your collection's getting bigger than mine.
Nah, not even.
Also for tour dates, which begin this month through the end of 2022, go to waltertrout.com. Check out our show notes on the website. It's rockandrollconfessional.rocks. We put a whole bunch of stuff up there. You can find links on some of the subjects we talked about in today's show, including some of Walter's new videos, old videos, new videos, stuff going back to when Walter was playing with Can Heat. That was in the 80s. There's also a link to his wife Maria's website to order her book. And there's also some before and after pictures. If you heard the interview, before and after pictures of the 1973 Fender Stratocaster and more.
Oh, yes, indeed.
And boy, does it look trashed.
Support the podcast by subscribing wherever you can, writing a review, and following and commenting on Instagram and Facebook, and sharing our posts with your friends.
So,
All right.
that's it for now.
Okay.